But on the way, you mentioned it before, John, we stop at Tabor.
Tabor. Oh, no, you see, as soon as you mention Tabor, I think taxis.
So we then get into our taxis because there are, I think it's between 16 or 18 hairpin bends to get up to the top of Tabor, because the coach can't take us up to the top. So we each sort of allocated taxis. There's about 12 in a taxi. They just look like minibuses.
It's like sat in Bolton bus station, but in the middle of the Holy Land. You just wait for a bus, don't you?
Yeah, and we just get up to the top of Tabor, and then we come across the most wonderful church.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Church of Transfiguration. Privilege of celebrating Mass there.
And the first thing you think of is, how did they get the building materials up here? Yeah. Because it is a vast church. And as Father said, it's a privilege for Father to celebrate Mass, but it's also a privilege for us to be up there. Again, peace and quiet. And there we see a bust of Paul VI, because Paul VI was the first Pope to travel to the Holy Land. Yeah. And he's commemorated in the gardens in Tabor. And so, yeah, very peaceful, very quiet, and just a beautiful place. So we spend about an hour there if we're not able to celebrate Mass, because in the Holy Land, you can't just turn up. You have to book your Masses in advance. And yes.
You're not kidding.
Yes.
Well, I'll get to Bethlehem in a minute. Go on.
All right. So, and we make our way down to Jerusalem. It takes us about 2.5 hours to get to Jerusalem, stopping en route for something to eat. And this is the difference. You see, some groups stay in Jerusalem, but some groups would prefer to stay in Bethlehem.
Well, I have stayed in Bethlehem.
You have, yeah.
Yeah, we stayed in a convent, and they were very friendly.
Yeah.
But I did like staying. Is it the Knights Hotel and the Gloria?
Yeah, we stayed in the Gloria, which is just within the city walls of Jerusalem.
Yeah, very near the Jaffa Gate.
Yeah, and the advantage of that is that in the evening,
a nice bar nearby.
we do the gentle walks around the old city, if you remember, and went to the Western Wall and did our just gentle walks in the evening.
Well, we'll do it. So let's say, just for ease of reference, we're staying in Jerusalem, but shall we go first to Bethlehem?
Right, so the next morning then, we board our coach, we go to Bethlehem. Now, over the years, I've been going to the Holy Land. This first day has changed greatly, because before, in my early days, you could just drive to Bethlehem and there was no problem. But now, sadly, Bethlehem is surrounded by a wall that has divided Palestine and Jerusalem.
And it's a huge wall, isn't it? I mean, it's a shock when you see it the first time.
A huge wall.
It makes Bethlehem look like a prison.
It does. Well, that's what Bethlehem is now, sadly. It's a prison. Because, again, I was lucky. 2 years ago, I went with Adrian, who owns Northern Star, and just the two of us went, and we had to enter Bethlehem. We couldn't take the hired car in because it wasn't allowed to go into Palestine. So we had to leave the car on the outskirts of Bethlehem in Jerusalem, and we had to walk. And then we had to enter the same way the Palestinians would enter their town. And it was actually queuing with hundreds of people because some workers do go out into Jerusalem and the surrounding area. But when they come back, they have to queue. And all I can describe it as is, in my early days of going to watch football, we used to go through turnstiles. Now, you would think with a city of Bethlehem that size, or a town of Bethlehem that size, there would be lots of turnstiles, but there wasn't. There was one. And they were beautiful. And because they saw me as a visitor and a female, they tried to bring us to the front of the queue, but we said, no, we'll just do the same as everybody else. We'll just wait. And so it was easy to get into Bethlehem, But the next day when we had to get out, it was harder because we had to show our passports. And but with the pilgrims now is we enter Bethlehem on the coach.
Yeah.
And our first stop is at the bus station, and then we have to walk probably for about 10 minutes to the Church of the Nativity, which is in Manger Square. And the first thing we do when we get there to get into the Church of the Nativity, we actually, if you remember, Father Chris, we have to go through that narrow door.
And very low, you have to bow down.
Yeah, we humble ourselves, and that door was created by the Crusaders to stop the looters coming into the churches on the horses, if you remember, and gathering all the valuables around the church and then escaping. So what they did was they created this narrow, low door, and we humble ourselves, and then we join that massive queue, if you remember.
Anne, yes.
Yes. So you could be queuing, John, for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
But this is to go to the point that when St. Helena, after Emperor Constantine became a Christian and his mother went back to the Holy Land, she had a vision of 3 places. And one of them was the site of the Nativity. And when she went and spoke to the local people, because understanding of precise land in spots in the Holy Land is much more than we do in our culture. And they said, oh, yeah, we know where you mean. And they took her to that spot. So the whole church has been built over that spot, hasn't it?
Yes, because it is the oldest Christian church, they say, in the world.
I mean, and you go down some steps, and then there's like a star underneath an altar. So you bow down or kneel down and kiss the star. And when you think that that's overwhelming when you think where you are for that, I think. Yeah.
And you only get minutes, John, because the queues are unbelievable. So if you get 3 minutes, you're lucky.
Oh yeah, but so memorable.
So is this the place of Jesus' birth then? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Place of Jesus' birth. Yeah.
And St. Helena had in a vision. She went back and they said, "Yeah, we know what you mean." So the thing about the Holy Land, just to do this, Emperor Hadrian, do you remember Emperor Hadrian who built Hadrian's Wall, wanted to get rid of all Christianity, wanted to obliterate it. So he wanted to get rid of all the key sites in the Holy Land. So what he did was he preserved them by accident because he built pagan temples onto the spots and he put the altars right on the exact spot that the Christians had venerated. So when Emperor Constantine became a Christian, all these places could be recovered and found again. And the more excavation, if you're a Franciscan friar, you do theology and excavating, archaeology, you've made it, because that's what they have lots of in the Holy Land. And the more excavation that they do, the more the stories in the Bible are being confirmed. You know, that these spots are where they really were.
Yeah.
So we've done that.
We've done that, and then we move on then to Shepherd's Field.
Well, we could go to the.
I tell you where we haven't forgot. We forgot Jerome, the Chapel of Saint Jerome downstairs.
We had mass there,
where he said in this area he translated the Bible.
Where he famously translated the Bible into Latin, into the Vulgate, and then also what's it called, the Milk.
Then we go up to the Milk Grotto.
Yeah, I tell you why this is important, John, because we got a bit mixed up on the time of our mass, right? Last time in the Nativity, and this priest, and God bless him, and I'll say a prayer for him, wouldn't really let us celebrate mass at another time, probably because we were busy, but we could have shared. But don't get me started on that. But anyway, a bit like no room at the end, we couldn't get there. But at the Milk Grotto, they let us celebrate mass. It was the most beautiful place to celebrate mass.
Absolutely.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
And meant to be.
Yeah, and then if you remember, after Mass, we had the hospitality of Basil in the shop, didn't we? And he gave everybody a coffee.
Yes, and that's where you leave Anne to do the negotiation and then just say, I've had lots of those things and those things.
Well, strangely enough, I've just put an order in with Basil now because, you know, I do support him because...
Well, I mean, the holding crosses and the rosary beads, we brought those back for people.
Yes.
and they mean a lot. And we also, one of the lovely things, I know you say, we sing Christmas carols, don't we?
We
Whatever
do,
time of
because
year.
when we're in Bethlehem, it's Christmas, isn't it? Really?
All the time. It is. It's like in the Holy Sepulchre. It's always Easter in the tomb. It's always Christmas there.
It's always Christmas.
And we came down with our parish down to Manger Square, and we met the head of the tourist police. Do you remember?
Oh, I do remember. Yes.
And he was telling us that all of Bethlehem was full. There was no room for anybody. And we saw this young couple in the corner with a little baby. It was very poignant, especially as they gave me this really big suite of rooms that had a living room and had 12 chairs in it. Yeah. So we had a party in there that night. It was the best I could do to make people welcome.
Yes.
And yes, so
people like their shopping in Bethlehem, because you find that as you get older, you don't want to accumulate too much clutter.
Well, you don't need 72 nativity sets, do you?
No, people just like to buy some Christmas decorations or maybe a little nativity set for their grandchildren. And so we have some nice free time in Bethlehem where we can do a little bit of shopping, have a coffee, watch the locals, and support them. Absolutely. Because it's the only place I've ever travelled in the Holy Land where young people have come up to me and said, thank you for coming.
Oh, now, let me tell you, John, do you know what thank you is in Arabic?
I don't know.
Well, let me tell you how I learned it the first time I went. Every time we got off the bus, wasn't with Anne the first time, I went with Birmingham Diocesan priest. Every time we got off the bus, the priest who was leading us said to the chap, Shokran Tony, right? So in all the shops and the restaurants, I kept saying Shokran Tony. And in the end, this priest said, why do you keep calling everybody Tony? And I said, no, I'm not. He said, yes, you are. He said, Shokran means thank you. Tony's the name of the bus driver. So don't make that mistake. Shokran. Right, come on, Anne.
So then, John, we go to Shepherd's Field.
Shepherd's Field, beautiful.
And it is absolutely, well, again, fabulous, because we're looking over to the fields where the shepherds still tend their sheep now, but we celebrate Mass in some cave-like buildings.
That's right.
The shepherds would have lived in. Yeah. So that is good. And then we're encouraged then to go into a cooperative shop. Some people some people want to do it, some people don't want to do it, because by then they've done enough shopping. But I just want to share one thing that happened the last visit I was on. I actually prayed the rosary on a Friday night with the community and some of my group, because every Friday night the local community walk around the wall and recite the rosary with the intention that one day, like Jericho, that wall will come tumbling down. And it was very, very powerful. And just near the wall is a hotel, and it's the Banksy Hotel.
Yeah.
And Banksy Banksy the artist, he created this hotel in defiance, really, of the Israelis, because the hotel is a building that is literally 5 meters away from the wall. And so when you look out in any of the rooms, all you get is the wall. And it's very oldie worldy, and it has fantastic museum which talks about the occupation and the struggle that they have. And it's
we've got to keep them all in our prayers, haven't we? Very important.
We have to, and we have to keep visiting.
Yeah, keep visiting and supporting, like at the the collection for the shrines.
Kelly said that.
Yeah,
we must never forget them. So sadly, then it's time for us to leave, because we're going back to Jerusalem. We're going back to our hotel. We're having a meal that evening. Then we're meeting.
We stopped in Bethlehem last time with you. It was nice.
We did, yeah.
Go on, sorry.
So then that evening we go back to Jerusalem, because that's where we're based. We have a nice meal. We then walk. We walk through the old market, and we head to the Western Wall. And again, we spend some time there. People have the free time. We're separated, of course, because you took the men into the left side of the wall. I took the ladies into our smaller section of the wall. But we had a nice evening, didn't we?
It's I mean, it's really still and prayerful there, John. You know, it's the only bit of the temple from the time of Jerusalem, from time of Jesus, that's still there. So actually, people like to touch the wall, very, you know, to sense that, and we'll put prayers in. It's a very, very special place.
It is. It is. So the next day is a really hectic day, John, because we get up. The bus takes us to the top of the Mount of Olives. And right at the top of the Mount of Olives, the first place we come to is the Church of the Ascension. Now, the Church of the Ascension is just a dome, and it's very, it's not all, it's looked after by the Muslim community, but we just stand in the courtyard, and we just get a few minutes again, because there's always a queue to go into the dome and maybe say a prayer, to come out of the courtyard and then walk to the Paternoster Church. That's where Jesus taught his friends the Our Father, and that's where the Our Father, I think it's in 90 different languages.
Is it 90? It's very
it's a lot of languages, yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, Father, but that's where that guy called Kozak is, where he tries to sell us the Jerusalem cross. Yeah. Follows us around.
There's a shop there, and I got a stole there that my mum and dad bought me as a present. And they were run by French religious sisters, I seem to think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that part of the land at the top of the Mount of Olives is looked after by the Carmelites.
And that site is another one of the sites that St. Helena had in a vision where Jesus taught them the Our Father. Yeah.
So then when we come out of there, we turn to our left and we make our way to the top of the Mount of Olives, and there we get that wonderful panoramic view.
Yeah, the classic view of Jerusalem with the golden dome and everything.
The one that you see on all the postcards.
Yeah.
We make our way down the side and we get to Dominus Flevit, where Jesus cried over Jerusalem.
And that's you're looking into Jerusalem the way that Jesus would have gone into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. The gates, the walls are 16th century, I think. So they're not the same ones, but that was the way he went into Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's right. And then we make our way further down, and it's very steep, and we make our way to the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, very special.
Very special, but always very crowded. And so if you were able to go on a pilgrimage, and on a Thursday evening, if you ask your tour company to book you in, you can actually book a holy hour from 8 o'clock till 9 in the garden.
Wow.
And there's nobody else there.
And the olive trees there, and they are olive trees, are very ancient. They think if they weren't at the time of Jesus, they weren't long after.
Yeah.
So there is that, you do get that sense. And inside the church, which is the Church of All Nations, isn't it, that church?
Yes.
There's alabaster. The windows are very finely cut alabaster. So it's a very well lit, but dimly, like with purple colours and everything. It's quite something, really.
It is. Yeah. And then once we, as you can remember, it was very, very busy around there.
Yeah.
We get back on our coach, that coach takes us then. We go to then the visitation, Enkarem. Do you remember?
Enkarem, yes.
Where Our Lady and Elizabeth.
So that's where that's like in sort of 2 or 3 miles, the suburbs really of Jerusalem.
That's right. Yeah. And we then go and visit the Church of John the Baptist as well, because it was in that region where John the Baptist was born. And
what both of those in Enkarem, where there's a lovely statue of Our Lady and Elizabeth, both pregnant, facing each other, greeting each other. And they have the Magnificat in all different languages, don't they?
They do.
And then if you go to for the birthplace of St. John the Baptist, they have the Benedictus, the prayers of Zechariah, all in different languages as well. Wonderful.
Yeah. So then again, back to our hotel. Now, the next night, we don't tend to go out because people are
so this 4th or 5th day.
John, I bet you're shattered now, aren't you? I've lost.
Yeah.
I've lost track now.
slightly
is
beginning to take
February.
a toll, John. So people might gather in the bar downstairs and have a few drinks and have a chat, but you'll find that by 9:30, most people are in the rooms. Because again, it's an early start the next morning.
Yeah.
Because the next morning is usually a day when we're on foot, because the coach can't drive in the old city of Jerusalem. So what we do is we walk the old city of Jerusalem, and we tend to walk towards the Temple Mount, and we go to a church called St. Anne's, which again is looked after by the White Fathers. And it's near the Sheepfold Gate, or it's near the Lion Gate. And it's also the start of the Via della Rosa. So we visit St. Anne's, and St. Anne's...
That's the way of the cross, John.
The way of the... Yeah. And St. Anne's has the most fantastic acoustics. So that is where you sing.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody takes it in turn to go onto the sanctuary.
John would be good at that. He's a really good singer, John.
Right.
And he sounds really posh when he sings.
And of course, that's close to me because there is a beautiful statue of Mary with her mother Anne. And then just outside in the grounds, that's where you've got the pools of Bethesda.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And as I say, it's looked after by the White Fathers. And I'm quite privileged at the moment because a friend of mine who is based in Rome, and he is the Vicar General to the White Fathers, we get at the moment a little bit of special treatment because Father Frank, who is a Mancunian, he was born in Denton, that's his responsibility. So we're quite lucky. We're allowed sometimes to go and view. I might say to the priest who's on duty, can I just take them into this garden? And we get the opportunity to just see behind the scenes at St. Anne's. That's lovely. So then we make our way to the first station, where Pilate judged Jesus, because we're now going to start our stations of the cross.
Because the stations of the cross, and this takes a bit for people to get their heads. We're pretty much walking through the streets of Jerusalem, and a couple of them might be in little churches, but others there's a plaque on the wall and things like that. So you've got everybody doing the normal business as we're walking. Different groups are walking along, praying the stations, aren't they, Anne?
They are, yeah. And you've got your shopkeepers who are still trying to get you to buy things off them, you know. And we try and remind the pilgrims that that's how it would have been in Jesus's time as well, you know. He was just somebody who was heading with his cross
out of the city.
Out
of the city. But it would have been a spectacle, and that's why.
Yeah, and people would have just been looking and carrying on their everyday things.
So there's there's a poignancy to it all, really.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, very different way of celebrating the Stations of the Cross, but because the Stations of the Cross came really into practice in medieval times because it was too dangerous to travel to the Holy Land. So, but to actually walk them is quite something. So they take us all the way up to...
We walk the cobbled streets then all the way up, stopping at all the stations until you get to the top. If you remember, you go up the big stairs and you're on the roof then of the Holy Sepulchre. But for those people who can't climb those stairs, I walk around and we meet in the courtyard of the Holy Sepulchre. And then we enter the holiest place on earth for us. But sometimes, John, it can be so busy. You could have thousands of people there, because one of the sad things is that cruise ships, and I say that, but I'm always on cruises, but cruise ships go, and so what they do is everybody wants to go to the Holy Sepulchre. So it's the holiest place for us, but it's the noisiest place. And
and it takes a bit of getting your head around it, because they've built churches over the site of Calvary and over the site of the tomb. So to begin with, when you say we're on Calvary now, well, you think, but I'm in a church. We are, but they've built it, and they actually put a glass thing to show that it's on rock now, haven't they, Anne?
Yeah, and this is where people get most confused, because they want to see the Green Hill.
Yeah. with 3 crosses on it, and it
Yeah.
doesn't look like that at all. I had to go, first time I went, I had to go back twice to get my head around that.
And the best time to go, the church opens at 4:00 in the morning.
Really early.
And if you do stay at the Gloria, it's wonderful to get up early
I did
and
that.
to walk there. And
I did that.
the only people that are there are true pilgrims who are just there to pray.
It was lovely. I walked really, and it was a bit like that, you know, the story Easter Sunday, Mary Magdalene, long before it was light. And to walk through the Sulk, which is all the shops normally, it's just deserted, and you walk through. Very special.
But that church is shared by different denominations.
Yeah.
So you have the Ethiopians who live on the roof.
Yeah,
You have the Greek Orthodox.
yeah.
You have the Roman Catholics.
The Coptics, the
We have
Coptic
the
Christians.
Coptics, yeah. And everybody is fighting for their little space. But it's the Coptics who monitor the tomb. And the tomb was saved by the British because during the Second World War, during the time when British soldiers were over there, because in the Holy Land, in certain sites, because they share them, they can't decide who would do maintenance. And it was getting to the point where the sepulchre in the middle of the church was falling down. And it was the British engineers who brought steel girders and brought it back and kept it, if you like, all together. But in the last 2 years, Father, since you've been there, there is none of that now. It just stands in its own right. There's no metal girders. And they've also opened the roof, and the sunlight just comes down to the sepulchre. So it's absolutely beautiful. And I think it's at this point we need to say a big thank you to the Franciscans, because without the Franciscans, this wouldn't exist, because the Franciscans do such a great job over
And that's why when they have the collection for the holy shrines on Good Friday, that's where the money goes to help the Franciscans in doing that.
Yeah.
So support them in our prayers and financially as well.
Because they own a lot of property in the Holy City, which are houses and flats, and they rent them out to Christian families who need help and support. And most of our guides are Catholic guides, and they will tell you the gratitude that they have for the Franciscans. And so when we support our holy sites, you know, we have to be so grateful for the input that they put in. And
well, Anne, you have given us,
I
hope that John has whetted your appetite. Well, you say that, we can virtually to begin with. And
we can.
When you see all of these things brought to life, you'll see Anne live on doing some talk to camera on that as well. You know, we're going to go to all these places this week, and hopefully, it's brought back a lot of memories for me. Hopefully, that's made you want to go, and that's precisely why we're doing this week. So, Anne, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure. And Father Chris, we will be going again, won't we?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And John, you'll be coming with us.
John, come with us next time we go.
We should.
Yeah.